By the year 1920, World War I was officially over. The guns had fallen silent, the trenches were empty, and peace treaties had been signed. Yet for millions of people across the world, the war was not truly finished. It lived on in memories, in ruined land, and in the broken lives of those who survived. Europe in 1920 was a continent exhausted beyond words. Across France and Belgium, the battlefields looked like open wounds. Shell craters filled with rainwater dotted the land. Barbed wire lay tangled like rusted skeletons. Entire forests had been reduced to blackened stumps. Farmers tried to return to their fields, but the soil was poisoned by gas and unexploded shells. Even years after the fighting, the land could still kill. For soldiers returning home, peace felt strange and unreal. Many had left their homes as teenagers in 1914. They returned 6 years later as men who had seen too much. Some came back without arms or legs. Others carried scars no one could see. There was no proper understanding of trauma at the time. What we now call post-traumatic stress was dismissed as weakness or shell shock. At night, former soldiers woke screaming from dreams of artillery fire and gas attacks. In the daytime, they struggled to fit into a society that expected them to simply move on. Jobs were scarce. Factories had closed. Governments praised veterans with speeches, but offered little real support. In Britain alone, nearly 1 million men had been killed during the war. In 1920, their absence was everywhere, in empty chairs at dinner tables, in schools missing fathers, and in towns where an entire generation of young men was gone. Women bore a heavy burden as well. Millions of widows struggled to survive on small pensions. Mothers waited endlessly for sons who would never return, clinging to hope even when hope was cruel. Children grew up knowing their fathers only through faded photographs and medals kept in drawers. Church bells rang not for celebration, but remembrance. Across Germany, the situation was even more desperate. Defeated and humiliated, Germany was crushed under the weight of the Treaty of Versailles. The country lost territory, military power, and was forced to pay enormous reparations. By 1920, inflation had begun to destroy savings. Food shortages were common. Former soldiers returned to hunger, anger, and political chaos. Many Germans believed they had been betrayed rather than defeated. Extremist ideas began to spread quietly among unemployed veterans and angry youth. The foundations of future conflict were being laid, even as the world spoke of peace. France, though victorious, was deeply wounded. Entire regions of northern France were destroyed beyond recognition. Towns had to be rebuilt from nothing. Roads, railways, and factories lay in ruins. Victory felt hollow when so many families were grieving. War memorials appeared in almost every village, listing names that would never return. In 1920, memorial ceremonies became common across Europe. Stone monuments and bronze statues were raised to honor the dead. Names were carved carefully into stone, sometimes hundreds from a single community. The phrase "never again" was spoken with deep emotion. Yet history would show how fragile that promise was. Beyond Europe, the world was also unstable. Empires had collapsed. New nations were born overnight, their borders drawn by distant politicians. Ethnic tensions grew. Civil wars erupted in parts of Eastern Europe and Russia. The violence of World War I had ended, but peace had not truly taken hold. Even culture was changed forever. Writers, poets, and artists who had survived the trenches began to tell the truth about the war. Their works spoke not of glory, but of mud, fear, and meaningless death. A generation of artists known as the Lost Generation questioned old values and traditions. Struggling to find meaning in a world forever changed by industrial warfare, despite everything, small signs of hope appeared in 1920. Children were born who had never heard a gunshot. Music returned to cafes. People tried to rebuild homes and lives. Veterans formed groups to support one another, sharing memories that no one else could understand. Humanity was wounded, but still alive. The year 1920 stood at a crossroads. The world could choose healing, understanding, and cooperation, or it could choose anger, revenge, and denial. The decisions made during this fragile peace would shape the future of the entire century. World War I officially ended years earlier, but its true ending was still being written. 1920 was not a year of victory. It was a year of survival. A year that proved wars do not end when the fighting stops. They end when the wounds finally heal. And in 1920, the world was still bleeding.